When we think of Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, what comes to mind? For some, it might be his time in office during the late 1970s, a period marked by challenges like the energy crisis and the Iranian hostage situation. But for many more, it's his post-presidential life that stands out, a life that has been nothing short of extraordinary. In fact, Carter's legacy goes far beyond the typical achievements of a politician. It's a testament to the power of compassion, tolerance, and a deep-seated desire to make the world a better place. Isn't it fascinating how a leader's most important work can happen after they've left the political stage, in a world often dominated by power struggles, competition, and egos? Carter's life serves as a refreshing reminder that leadership doesn't have to be about control or dominance. Instead, it can, and should, be about compassion. It should be about understanding the needs of others, about tolerance for differences, and about finding ways to connect rather than divide. These are values that Carter has carried with him throughout his life, and they are the very same values that lie at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. Let's dive deeper into the remarkable life of Jimmy Carter, exploring how his leadership philosophy, his humanitarian work, and his alignment with principles of compassion and tolerance have shaped both his legacy and the world around him. Through this exploration, we'll see just how relevant his message remains in today's complex and divided world, and how we, too, can take inspiration from his journey, the making of a compassionate leader, early life and formative influences. Born on October 1, 1924, in the small town of Plains, Georgia, James Earl Carter Jr. grew up in a community where neighbors knew each other by name, and values like hard work and empathy were ingrained in daily life. Can you imagine the kind of close-knit world that would shape a future world leader? Carter's parents played an important role in nurturing his moral compass. His mother, Lillian Gordy Carter, was a nurse who dedicated herself to helping people in need. Regardless of race or background, a rarity in the segregated South at that time. Her kindness and commitment to social justice had a profound influence on young Jimmy, who absorbed these lessons and carried them into his adult life. In the early years, Carter's father was a successful businessman and a farmer, but it was his mother's humanitarian spirit that left the strongest imprint on him. Lillian's dedication to helping others regardless of their circumstances can be seen in Carter's own career trajectory, from his work in politics to his humanitarian efforts later in life. Do you think leaders today could benefit from such foundational lessons in compassion? After graduating from high school, Carter attended the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. There, he learned discipline and perseverance, traits that would serve him well in his political career. However, even in the midst of his naval service, Carter's Southern Baptist faith continued to grow. While he was developing his skills as a military officer, he was also honing his sense of responsibility to others, which would eventually evolve into a broader humanitarian vision. Entering public service, Carter returned to Georgia in the early 1950s, where he took over the family peanut farm after his father's death. It wasn't long before he entered politics, winning a seat in the Georgia State Senate in 1962. Even in those early political days, Carter's focus was on reform and justice. He worked to fight racial discrimination and pushed for greater fairness in government. At a time when segregation and racial tensions were still rampant in the South, Carter's commitment to justice was clear. His Christian faith played a pivotal role in shaping these efforts. Throughout his political career, Carter often quoted from the Bible, emphasizing the need to love thy neighbor and to care for the least fortunate. While his devotion was rooted in Christianity, the values he championed, compassion, tolerance, empathy, are universal, transcending religious boundaries. Carter has always believed that true leadership is about serving others, not simply accumulating power. Isn't that a lesson we could all learn from, regardless of our beliefs? When he became governor of Georgia in 1971, Carter made waves by calling for an end to racial segregation in his inaugural address. His bold stance against institutionalized racism in the South earned him both praise and criticism, but it demonstrated his unwavering commitment to equality. Carter's ability to stand firm in his values, even when they were unpopular, would come to define his political and humanitarian career, the Compassionate Presidency, Human Rights at the Center. When Jimmy Carter was inaugurated as President of the United States in 1977, he carried with him a deep conviction: human rights should be at the core of U.S. foreign and domestic policy. Carter's presidency may have been marked by significant challenges, ranging from the energy crisis to the Iranian hostage situation, but his commitment to the well-being of all people remained steadfast throughout his time in office. From the outset of his presidency, Carter made it clear that human rights were not merely a side issue, they were a cornerstone of his administration. He established the Bureau of Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs in the State Department, and he sought to use U.S. influence to promote human rights around the world. In his speeches, Carter repeatedly emphasized the importance of compassion in global affairs, reminding world leaders that their power should be used to alleviate suffering, not exacerbate it. One of the most notable aspects of Carter's presidency was his insistence on putting human rights before economic or political interests. This approach was evident in his stance on South Africa's apartheid regime, where he applied pressure through economic sanctions and diplomatic efforts to support the dismantling of the racist system. He also pushed for the normalization of relations with China, arguing that engagement, rather than isolation, was the best way to encourage reform. In a world often driven by political expediency and power politics, Carter's commitment to human rights was remarkable. How many leaders today would be willing to sacrifice short-term political gains for the long-term goal of justice? The Camp David Accords, a triumph of compassion. One of the crowning achievements of Carter's presidency was the Camp David Accords in 1978, which brought about a peace agreement between Egypt and Israel, two nations with a long history of animosity and war. The negotiations were incredibly tense, and at times it seemed that peace would be impossible. Yet Carter persisted, driven by a deep sense of empathy for both sides. What made the Camp David Accords so extraordinary was Carter's personal involvement in the negotiations. He didn't just facilitate the talks, he actively worked to build trust between Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Carter spent hours meeting with each leader, listening to their concerns, and encouraging them to see the world through the other's eyes. This was not just diplomacy as usual, it was compassion in action. Carter understood that in order to broker peace, both parties needed to feel understood and respected. His ability to empathize with both sides, even in the midst of deep-seated hostility, is a perfect reflection of his belief in the power of tolerance and understanding. Can you imagine what today's conflicts might look like if more leaders approached them with this level of empathy? Carter's role in the Camp David Accords earned him widespread praise and demonstrated the profound impact that compassionate leadership can have on global affairs. The peace agreement between Egypt and Israel remains one of the most significant diplomatic achievements in modern history, and it's a testament to the power of human connection in resolving even the most intractable conflicts. The Carter Center, Compassion Beyond the Presidency, building a platform for global change. When Jimmy Carter left office in 1981, many assumed his political career had come to an end. Little did they know that his most impactful work was just beginning. In 1982, Carter and his wife Rosalind founded the Carter Center, a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting peace, human rights, and the alleviation of suffering around the world. This marked the beginning of what is often considered one of the most successful post-presidential careers in history. At the heart of the Carter Center's mission is the belief that compassion and tolerance are essential tools for building a better world. The center's work spans a wide range of issues, from conflict resolution and election monitoring to disease eradication and poverty reduction. Under Carter's leadership, the organization has become a global force for good, impacting millions of lives in some of the world's most underserved regions. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Carter Center's work is its focus on helping the world's most vulnerable populations. Whether it's working to eliminate guinea worm disease, a debilitating illness that once affected millions but now has been nearly eradicated, or advocating for fair elections in war-torn nations. The Carter Center's efforts are driven by a profound sense of empathy for those who suffer. Carter's belief in the power of compassionate action is evident in every aspect of the center's work. He has always emphasized that the goal is not just to alleviate immediate suffering, but to address the root causes of inequality and conflict. This holistic approach, rooted in both empathy and pragmatism, has made the Carter Center one of the most respected humanitarian organizations in the world. Could there be a better example of compassion in action? Disease eradication, a global success story. Perhaps one of the Carter Center's most notable achievements is its work in the near eradication of guinea worm disease. At the time when the center began its efforts, the disease affected over 3.5 million people in 21 countries, primarily in Africa and Asia. Today, thanks to Carter's tireless advocacy and the work of the center, that number has dropped to just a handful of cases each year. What's truly incredible about this achievement is the way in which it was accomplished, not through expensive drugs or complex medical interventions, but through education and simple prevention strategies. Carter and his team worked directly with communities, teaching them how to filter their drinking water and prevent the transmission of the disease. This grassroots approach, grounded in compassion and respect for the dignity of the individuals affected, has saved countless lives. Carter has often spoken about how his Christian faith motivates his desire to help those in need. But his emphasis on alleviating human suffering echoes the Bodhisattva ideal in Mahayana Buddhism, where individuals dedicate their lives to relieving the suffering of others. Whether through his work with Habitat for Humanity, where he's personally helped build homes for the homeless, or through his efforts to fight diseases like guinea worm, Carter's humanitarianism is a shining example of compassionate action, compassion, tolerance, and global leadership. Carter's advocacy for peace. Throughout his life, Carter has been a vocal advocate for peace and justice on the global stage. Whether it's through his work in conflict resolution, his election monitoring efforts, or his advocacy for human rights, Carter has consistently called for leaders to put aside their differences and work towards a more peaceful and just world. One of the key principles that guides Carter's work is his belief in the importance of tolerance. In a world rife with conflict and division, Carter argues that tolerance is essential for harmonious coexistence. He has often spoken about the need to respect differences, whether they be religious, cultural, or political, because at the end of the day, all humans share a fundamental desire for happiness and peace. This perspective is deeply aligned with Buddhist teachings on tolerance and interconnectedness. In Buddhism, the concept of metta, loving kindness, encourages individuals to extend kindness and understanding to all beings, regardless of their background or circumstances. Carter's commitment to promoting tolerance and understanding is evident in his work in the Middle East, where he has consistently advocated for mutual respect and the cessation of violence as pathways to long-term stability. It's this deep sense of empathy that has made Carter such an effective peace builder. Whether he's mediating conflicts in war-torn nations or advocating for the rights of marginalized populations, Carter's approach is always the same: putting oneself in the shoes of others and working to create solutions that benefit the most vulnerable. Isn't that exactly the kind of leadership the world needs more of today? Tolerance as a pathway to peace. Carter's emphasis on tolerance is particularly significant in his work on Middle Eastern peace. He has long been an advocate for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, arguing that mutual respect and coexistence are the only viable pathways to long-term stability in the region. Carter's ability to see the humanity in both sides, and to encourage others to do the same, is a powerful reminder of the importance of tolerance in resolving conflicts. This is not to say that Carter's work has been without controversy. His outspoken criticism of Israeli policies, particularly in his book, Palestine, Peace Not Apartheid, sparked significant debate and even backlash. Yet Carter has remained firm in his belief that true peace can only be achieved when both sides are treated with fairness and dignity. His willingness to speak truth to power, even when it's unpopular, is a testament to his deep commitment to justice. Carter's advocacy for peace in the Middle East is just one example of his broader belief that tolerance is not a weakness, but a strength. He has consistently called on world leaders to embrace diversity and to recognize that our differences should not be a source of division, but an opportunity for growth and understanding. Wouldn't the world be a better place if more leaders shared this vision? Compassion in a globalized world, the global challenges of our time. In today's increasingly interconnected and globalized world, Carter's message of compassion and tolerance feels more urgent than ever. From ongoing conflicts in the Middle East to the refugee crisis, from economic inequality to environmental degradation, the challenges we face are global in scope and require global solutions. Carter has long argued that the only way to address these complex issues is through a renewed commitment to compassion and empathy. One of the central tenets of Carter's worldview is his belief in the interconnectedness of all people. He has frequently spoken about the moral and ethical obligation to help those in need, even if they live in far-flung parts of the world. This global perspective mirrors Buddhist teachings on interdependence, pratitya samutpada, the idea that all beings are connected and that actions in one part of the world inevitably affect others. In a world where borders are increasingly porous and where the consequences of conflict, poverty, and environmental degradation are felt far beyond the regions in which they originate, Carter's call for global compassion is more relevant than ever. He has often emphasized that compassion knows no borders, and that in order to build a more peaceful and just world, we must cultivate a sense of empathy for those suffering, regardless of their background or location. Isn't that a message we could all stand to hear more often? Compassionate leadership in a time of crisis. The challenges of the 21st century demand a new kind of leadership, one rooted in compassion, tolerance, and understanding. Carter's life and work offer a powerful example of what this kind of leadership looks like in practice. Whether it's through his humanitarian efforts with the Carter Center, his advocacy for human rights, or his work in promoting peace, Carter has consistently shown that compassionate leadership is not just possible, it's necessary. At a time when many world leaders are focused on building walls and closing borders, Carter's message of global responsibility feels like a breath of fresh air. He has often spoken about the need for leaders to look beyond their own interests and to recognize the shared humanity that binds us all. This, he argues, is the only way to address the complex challenges of our time and to build a world that is truly just and peaceful. Conclusion: the enduring legacy of Jimmy Carter. As we reflect on Jimmy Carter's remarkable life and legacy, one thing becomes clear: his commitment to compassion and tolerance has left an indelible mark on both American politics and global humanitarian efforts. From his time as president to his work with the Carter Center, Carter has demonstrated the transformative power of these values, showing that they are not just ideals to aspire to, but practical tools for creating positive change. In a world that is often divided by political and cultural differences, Carter's message of empathy, understanding, and global responsibility remains as relevant as ever. His legacy serves as a powerful reminder that compassion and tolerance are not just personal virtues, but essential qualities for effective leadership. As conflicts and inequalities continue to shape the modern world, we are left with a profound question: what would the world look like if more leaders followed Carter's example? What if, instead of focusing on power and control, our leaders embraced empathy, tolerance, and a commitment to justice for all? Can you imagine the difference that would make? Jimmy Carter's life is a testament to the power of compassion and tolerance, not just as abstract ideals, but as forces that can change the world. His legacy will continue to inspire future generations of leaders and individuals striving to build a world rooted in these timeless values. And isn't that the kind of world we all want to live in?